the Dialed In Angling podcast presented by Strike Master Augers, onX Fish, Arneson's Rocky Point Resort, and Visit Cook County. Well, this week on the podcast, I am actually with the onX Fish team. We are exploring the Grand Rapids area. You know, if you look at a map at Grand Rapids, it's dotted with lakes, right? It's just one of those regions in Minnesota, but really in the Midwest where you can go any direction. There's a lake, there's a river system, just endless opportunity to explore. For me as a fishing guide, as someone that just loves to fish, I love exploring lakes. I think it goes back to my youth. You know, I grew up on a lake river system. I had a ton of lakes around me. And at different times a year, I wanted to panfish, I wanted to bass fish, I wanted to pike fish, I wanted to walleye fish. You know, I wanted to explore everything. And really, I've said it on this podcast over and over, but that's why I live in Minnesota, because, you know, even driving to Grand Rapids, it's less than an hour from my house. I drove past hundreds of lakes to get here. And, you know, with me on the podcast this week is Joel Nelson and also Tony. I'd like to have you guys introduce yourself. First of all, thank you for sitting in on the podcast. I know you guys are fish heads like me. You love exploring new lakes. And let's dive into this whole experience, because I know, Joel, you sort of spearheaded this idea like, hey, let's go to Grand Rapids or somewhere, and we'll open the onX Fish app. We'll start exploring new lakes. You know, we're not going to get into the lakes we're actually going to fish, but really we use the app to help our guide where we're going as far as access points, lakes that are outliers for specific species. We're getting a photo shoot done. We've got some writers here. First of all, let's introduce yourselves. Joel Nelson, let's start with you and talk a little bit about this experience.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks so much, Tony. I've been on the show before. Joel Nelson, marketing manager for onX Fish. Like Tony said, fishing is what I do. It's almost all I do. And with onX Fish, it's one of these things where I think as an angler, we're really going to help folks be better. And we're putting it to the test. We're up here for a writers event right now in Grand Rapids, and we're showing people around in the app, and we're utilizing it to find new lakes. It's not a novel idea, but onX Fish has really enabled us to become not just better anglers, but anglers that are better informed. And really, in a writer's event, it's cool because we've got people here from out of town that have never used the app or have used it very little. And we're kind of challenging them to say, hey, where would you fish? And what kind of information is the information you want to know to challenge yourself, take you to new places, find new lakes, and have the confidence to get there? So again, I think it's going to be a great experience. We've already done a little bit of fishing. We're going to do some more today. Can't wait. Really excited. And we've got an esteemed guest in camp, Tony J. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce your last name, but we'll let you do it for the folks at home.
Yeah. Thanks for the invite, guys. My name's Tony Jenniges. I'm an outdoor writer here for the onX event. I got the invite from Jack, your coworker here, to come up to Minnesota, and luckily I get to go on a lot of trips with my job, but when I saw, a Minnesota multi-species fishing trip, I got pretty excited. That's what I like to do. It's what I grew up doing down in Nebraska. Now we don't have nearly the lakes you guys do up here. So, I fish a rotation of 5 or 6 lakes, and after a while, you know everything about those lakes, if you grew up fishing them. So to come up here and see how the onX app works and be able to fish such a variety of different waters and variety of fish is something that I really have enjoyed. I'm already looking at planning a trip for next summer, maybe late summer, to come back up here and visit. So I was literally on Zillow last night looking at lake cabins up here. So I've had that much fun. So I was in the boat with Tony all day yesterday, and the fishing was great. The weather was great. Nice walleye, a big bass are caught. I think a 4-pound smallmouth. So we're lucky to see 3.5-pound smallmouth where I'm at. So, you gave us a presentation on the app, everything. We'll dive into that, I'm sure. But I was blown away by it, and we are physically using it today. We sat down last night, said we want to target smallmouth. We dug through the app and we picked a lake based on that. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the fishing is today. So.
Joel, you talk about informed anglers. For me, whether I'm going to a destination that I haven't fished in a while, or I'm just picking a brand new one, I've always been a map geek, right? Back in the day, it was paper maps. And then when the booklets came out where it was like all of the lakes in Aiken County or Brainerd or whatever, I was the first one to buy like every single map book that was out there. And, I'm always scrolling the internet, I'm jumping around trying to find data, fishing reports, water clarity, access points. I'm always trying to navigate all of that. And before the onX Fish app, it was kind of all of that. It was scrolling the internet. It was looking for fishing reports. And as you Google something like that, it's crazy the amount of stuff that pops up that's unrelated, right? And it's sort of just noise. Whereas when you get in the onX Fish app, it's all right there for you. One of my favorite things to do with my son now, because he is at the age where he's a teenager, he likes exploring lakes as well. The biggest thing I get a kick out of, and I know Joel and I have talked about this, but in the past, when I've had my kids in the car, and I'm sure all of you can relate if you have kids, it's sort of looking out the window like, hey, guys, check this out. And they're looking at Instagram or TikTok or whatever. Now, me and my son literally sit in the truck, and he's scanning lakes as we're driving by. And he'll be like, Dad, you ever fish this one? Dad, you ever fish this one? Wow, this one's an outlier for crappie. Wow, and he's just engaged the entire time. And so me as a dad, someone who raised my kids hunting and fishing, it's really rewarding for him to be doing that. And it gets me thinking too. It sort of gets the cogs going in my brain like, wow, no, I drive by that lake all the time. I had no idea it had an abundance of bluegills or it was an outlier for crappies.
Yeah, I think our kids are the same. We do the same thing down in southern Minnesota where I'm from, drive around, check out different lakes. And, it's interesting whether you're near home and you're thinking, oh, this is a lake I drive past all the time, but I've never really dove into it. It's useful there. Or in this instance, the first thing we did last night is we dove into the app, we pulled up the filters, and we're like, smallies. We want to focus on smallies today.
I think that was Tony's.
Yeah.
I think I wore out Tony walleye fishing yesterday because we had to throw out a lot of fish to get him to bite. We did get him to bite. We got some really big ones. But, it was sort of that finesse, finicky bite. And I think everybody in the crowd last night was ready to have a fish absolutely wampa bait.
Yeah.
None of this finesse walleye fishing. Tony's ready to just smear smallmouth.
Yeah, I think I'm going to call this podcast today Between Two Tonys because I have to keep referring to the right one. But Tony J, you brought up something earlier. You were talking about, hey, I fish some of these same lakes again and again. I know most of what there is to know in these lakes, but you also did something last night that was interesting that I think plays into the app a little bit in that each year there's new data that comes out. There's new surveys. There's stocking information. There's different portions where even if you feel like you know it pretty well, maybe you're fishing a tournament and it'd be really useful to know there's a certain year class that's coming through. And I really want to try to focus on that size of fish. If I'm not getting them, I want to go somewhere where I should be or can get more of those fish because they present the best opportunity in the tournament I'm fishing to try and make hay for that day on the water.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's a good point. One of my favorite features of the app that you guys showed me was the age class feature. Seeing the stocking reporting and the survey reporting was showing, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, you had a bunch of, let's just say, smallmouth that were 12 inches. You can actually physically watch the survey. You can see that age class grow. And now hey, there's an abundance of smaller smallmouth 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. There should be some really good ones by now in there. So that's one of my favorite features to look at for me. And it will be useful when you guys get down to my neck of the woods. Like I said, I do look at that data, and I got a lake from my, it's a city pond by my house. It's not huge. It's 5 mile an hour, but I've never really fished it because I've always just not had luck. I looked at the survey data, and I saw it's up there at the top this year for largemouth. So I went out there, I'll go try it. Haven't tried it in years. And I caught a 6.5 pound largemouth out of this, just a tiny little pond in the city. So
wow.
It's important to look at that data. You can't just assume a lake's always the same. They're constantly changing, and this app's going to keep up with it. So.
Yeah, lakes are cyclical. As a guide, I sort of get locked into where I'm walleye fishing and focused on walleyes all the time or smallmouth bass that, when I fish a lake, for example, and I'm so focused on walleyes, all of a sudden you look at the app and you're like, wow, this lake has giant bluegills, but I'm not looking in these back bays for these fish. And so it sort of reminds you like, hey, there's options out there. I know sometimes when I'm fishing lakes that I haven't fished in a while, you tend to go to the same spots that you're comfortable with first, right? And then with forward-facing sonar, obviously you branch out from there. But I can't tell you how many times where I started exploring a lake and all of a sudden I did bump into big bluegills or monster largemouth, where I'm not necessarily looking in those areas all the time because I'm so locked into getting walleyes for customers. And, a lot of people just want to tug on the line, right? And so sometimes you get so laser focused on what you're going to do. I lay in bed at night looking at the app and looking at maps all the time and like, oh man, looking for like areas that I just experienced, So, okay, I caught them on this mid-lake hump. Where are there more mid-lake humps that have that same sort of structure that I may have just driven right over the top of? That can be said about driving by lakes all the time. I drive by thousands of lakes. I put 60, 70,000 miles on my truck a year for dialed-in angling, for guiding. I'm always driving around. I'm always looking for new bites, new experiences. And really the app has been, I say it in the commercial for onX Fish, it's been a game changer.
It's funny, Tony, I think of you and all that you do for fishing and guiding, and as much as you fish, you visit more public accesses than just about anybody in the state. Absolutely. And I know you and I can relate back in the day, keeping your eyes peeled 5:30 in the morning for little brown signs, trying to figure out which back road, which turn I got to take. That's not a thing for you anymore. You've been telling me about the driving directions, and I'd love to hear more about that.
So that's like one of the first things that gravitated me towards the app was the fact that you can locate public access points. I can't tell you how many times I drove down the wrong forest road, pulling a trailer in the winter with a four-wheeler snowmobile on the back, and there's no turnaround because I took the wrong turn, right? I kind of just pulled up whatever map features I had, and it said there was a public access, and it was wrong. You get on the onX Fish app, it'll show you public access points. You click on it, there's driving directions right there. I can pull it up on my Apple CarPlay. I don't even have to think about it. I have gained access to more places than I ever have this last season. Prime example, dialed-in angling. We were scouting for some panfish lakes in northern Minnesota, and I was basically just going from lake to lake. I was looking for a good solid bite. I was looking for good fish. There's some things that I had on my radar. And there was this last winter in particular, there wasn't a lot of snow, so I could explore lakes. Even driving back from filming dialed-in angling, I would swing into areas because I had the app on my phone, and it was Car Apple Play. It's so convenient to have that. And just that alone really changed the way I go about, exploring these lakes. Because there's a couple times where I was like, I had no idea the access point was right there. And even some of the lakes have multiple access points. So, I had always driven way up to the north end of this particular access, in which early ice, I actually wanted to walk out on the south end. I found out through the app that, oh, guess what? On this particular lake, there is an access point on the south end. Now I only have to walk about 100 yards out early ice, not risking life and limb, to get on fish. And for me, there's some days where I like to hit 3, 4, 5 lakes, depending on lake size, just to get a feel of how the bite is this year. We talk about cyclical nature of lakes. Get a bite. How's the bite this year? How's it doing? A year class that I saw that was coming up, how are they looking? I do it all the time. I do it for panfish. I do it for walleyes. I do it for perch. I do it for bass. You name it, and it saves me from having to pull my boat down some random gravel road and finding out it's the wrong place and I can't turn around. It's happened.
Yeah, I love that because nobody's going to test that feature better than you. And if you're liking it, obviously it's going to benefit tons of anglers. Tony J, I was thinking about you. You talked about Zillow, looking for a place up here.
Yeah.
Whether you're looking for a place or whether you're just vacationing here, I bet you're feeling a little more confident about, let's say, it's not even talking Minnesota. Let's say I want to go to central Wisconsin and I'm going to be camping I'm going to throw a rod in, but like without any other kind of guide type information, how am I going to find the lakes, where to fish them, what to use, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, now the angler has an app where if he's on vacation with the wife and wherever, and he wants to take an afternoon while she's napping to go catch a fish, he can pull it up and say, there's a pond 4 miles away, tiny little, bank access, but it's got big bluegill in it. He's got something to go do now. So I think this app's really going to ignite that fire that, we all cut our teeth on. Most of us cut our teeth on, pond fishing growing up. It's how we got introduced to fishing, catching bluegill on bobbers and things like that. And I think having this app, and it's going to show you, hey, there's big bluegill over here. I've never fished this pond. It's going to rekindle that fire for a lot of fishermen that maybe have just gotten the routine of putting the boat on the water, going and catching walleye. So I think you're going to see a resurgence of multi-species fishermen based on this app, just because of the information they now have at their, in their pocket. So.
Well, I want to talk about technology as a whole, but I also want to touch on the point that you made, Tony, is the fact that I get customers that come to Minnesota all the time, and they're from Nebraska, Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, you name it, even from Minnesota, and they come up to lakes like Mille Lacs, Leech, Winnie, all these big bodies of water, and they want to have a great experience with their family, and so they come up, they hire me, I show them a bunch of spots. I'm always really open about, hey, you guys should check this spot out. This would be great for the kids. Anytime I go somewhere, I try to tell them to either mark spots or take a note of where we're fishing. However, the problem lies is sometimes they have a small boat. And, when you're dealing with a Mille Lacs or a Leech or a Winnie, it can be challenging with a family in a small boat. Even with a big boat, the wind blows. You don't want to be out there, right? The wife, the kids,
not as much fun that way.
They don't want to be on that big body of water. But since they're new to the area or don't realize that there's hundreds of lakes around you that you can fish, I mean, I do it for sure weekly, sometimes daily, where I'm explaining to customers like, hey, you don't have to fish Mille Lacs tomorrow, or you don't have to fish Leech. You're staying at this resort, but 2 miles down the road is an incredible walleye lake or an incredible panfish lake, or maybe you guys want to do some largemouth fishing or just get out of the wind and just go catch fish. I show them all the time on the app where I'll pull it up and be like, okay, this is the lake. Here's how you get to the access point. And lots of them are like, oh, what app is that? Oh, it's onX Fish. Okay, cool. So they download it themselves. Even river access, I get customers that come and fish with me for a couple of days, but then they don't have a boat. So they always ask like, hey, where's the closest fishing pier? Well, right here on the app, here it shows every fishing pier on this lake, every fishing pier period in the area. And then also, hey, there's a bunch of river systems that you can fish where you can take the kids down there and just walk down the river and catch everything. Smallmouth bass, walleyes, pike, you name it, panfish. There's countless areas that I look at where we're sitting right now in this Grand Rapids area. There is so much shore fishing opportunity that you have no idea. And what's cool about the app is you can pull it up, you can find out what's public ground, right? You can find out where the fishing piers are. You can find out the access points. And so it's such a powerful tool in that sense that if you're going on vacation somewhere, you're not going to be locked into that lake. That can be said about people vacationing in small bodies of water. Some people feel like they get stuck at a resort. Okay, you're stuck here, boats in the water. No, you can peel out and explore and do exactly what we're doing with this Grand Rapids experience on your own.
Tony J, you said something last night. We were looking at the app, and we had fished previously a pretty clear body of water, but we were looking at the lake we were going to fish today, and right away you spotted on the aerial photography and also in the water clarity notes for the lake, 13.3 feet of clarity on the lake we're going to be fishing today. Tell me a little bit about that, what that means to you maybe as a bass angler. Going to change things up for you. Like what things can you glean just by looking at the air photos?
Yeah, and you have the recent imagery too on there, which helps a lot for, where I'm at would be like lake levels because they fluctuate so much where I am. I don't think that's a big deal up here, but clarity. If you want to go catch largemouth, sometimes you don't want crystal clear water. You want some stain to the water, especially if you're going to fish moving baits like a spinnerbait or a chatterbait. So if that's what you're after, looking at that clarity level will really help dial in the bite that you want to get after. This app's not only going to help you find which lakes you want to fish, it's going to help you, if you're like, hey, I really want to go catch bass on a chatterbait. I want to get better at using a chatterbait. So I don't want to fish a lake that's ultra clear. this will help you determine which lakes you actually want to go fish. So it's not only for finding fish, it's finding the bite too, like the bite you want to get after. So, but yeah, if you're used to the onX Hunt app, it's a lot of the same on this. The features are going to be natural for you. There's not a big learning curve at all with it. You guys didn't add any fluff to it. You don't have to dig through to find information. It's just right there at your fingertips, easy to navigate. It really is an impressive app. So.
Yeah, the water clarity thing you touched on, it helps me as a guide too, because like, again, I get laser focused on like locking in on a certain technique. Well, it tells me like, oh man, I had no idea this lake is extremely dark, right? And I fish a lot of clear glacial lakes, so I'm sort of geared up in my boat right now for fishing clear water. But as soon as you know you're going to a lake that's got dark stained water, you start throwing in the electric chickens and the bright colors, the fire tigers, and the brighter colors like that. Even different types of baits, whether it be chatterbaits or spinner baits or whatever. But you can get geared up for that day, so you're not fumbling around. Nothing worse. I hate getting in the boat in the morning and like, oh, sorry guys, I got to re-rig here. I'm already armed with that information. Joel, let's talk about the app itself and where it's available, like what states it's available in, how people can get the app, all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. We just dropped a new state, North Dakota. We have been in Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan for, roughly a year. It's been a free product up till now, but as we expand and we're really trying to grow across the Midwest, we're offering it for a very low price. It's $34.99 for the year. That includes all of your states, not just one state. If you live on the border waters, you're traveling to fish, which so many of us are, this is going to help you not just in one area. Plus, we're rapidly expanding. We're going to be knocking down other states in the coming months. We'll have to wait and see. We're going to keep that a little bit of a secret from you guys, but you'll really enjoy having the ability to, throughout the Midwest, be able to plan and go around and check different things out. So it's literally very easy. If you've got an iPhone, it's available on the App Store. Just go ahead and download that thing. You can probably spend some time even on YouTube if you want just quick tutorials. We've actually, on the onX Hunt YouTube channel, have something called a masterclass where every month we put this thing on, and you guys can attend in live session with me. I'm going through the app, showing people how to use it, or you can look at one of those recordings out on YouTube to get a little bit more information. But like Tony J said, if you're an angler, if you like maps, if you're used to navigating them, which so many of us are, this is going to be super intuitive to you. That's part of the secret sauce. We think we've benefited from 10, 15 years of onX Hunt being so successful. And our map engineers, our product engineers are so good at making this fall off a log easy. We really want it to be. We don't want there to be a hurdle to enjoyment or use. So it's as simple as downloading it, signing on, and going to town, starting to find new lakes.
Right on. Well, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, I want to talk about the rest of our experience here, what we're going to do today. I also want to talk about using forward-facing technology, all the other technologies that we use in addition to the app to explore these lakes and to be successful on the water. So stay tuned. We got more Dialed In Angling podcast coming your way.
Visit Cook County, Minnesota, a year-round fishing destination like no other. Spring brings steelhead and smelt runs along the Lake Superior shoreline. In summer, cast for walleye, lake trout, and northern pike in the region's inland lakes and rivers. As the leaves change, so does the fishing, with fall offering some of the best lake trout action around. When winter settles in, grab your gear and head out for ice fishing in a true northern wilderness setting. Whether you're an experienced angler or just discovering the joy of casting a line, Cook County has a spot and a season for you. Learn more and start planning your fishing trip at visitcookcounty.com.
onX Fish is the best tool I have ever used for finding new lakes to target. Download the app today to get fisheries information in the state of Minnesota and Wisconsin, along with research tools for serious anglers and beginners alike. Filter lakes by species, trophy only, keeper fish, abundance, or all of the above. Plan which lakes to fish with the app, navigate to the accesses, and once you're there, use the onX best-in-class weather imagery and fishing hotspots to catch more fish. onX Fish is a phenomenal tool both on and off the water for discovering new fishing opportunities, many of which you would never known existed. onX Fish, the app that is changing the game on ice. Arneson's Rocky Point Resort in northern Minnesota offers a little something for everyone. Nestled on Lake of the Woods South Shore, it provides easy access to 14 remarkable reefs. Serious anglers know that Arneson's offers some of the best fishing, charter fishing, and small boat fishing options, all supported by the largest protected marina on the lake's South Shore. Accommodation selections range from 1 to 5 bedrooms. Equipped with all the modern conveniences, guests can enjoy a delightful dining experience and stunning lake views at the Rock Harbor Lodge, an on-site full-service bar and restaurant. The 2 beaches provide hours of fun for the whole family. Whether you're seeking an idyllic fishing spot or a relaxing vacation, Arneson's Rocky Point has everything you need. Check them out at arnesonsresort.com. We are back with the onX Fish crew talking about our Grand Rapids experience. You know, Joel, when you reached out to me late winter talking about what we were going to do on this trip, this writers event, we've got not only Tony here, we've got Natalie from Outdoor News, we got Matt Addington, a photographer. You know, we got some killer photo fish yesterday. Fun experience. And again, the exploratory aspect of this whole trip is fun to me. You know, even though we're in the first part of June, everything's been sort of delayed this year. You know, on past podcasts, I've talked about how I've had to basically throw everything in my boat because I didn't know what to prepare for. We've had a bunch of big cold fronts, and then all of a sudden we'll get these crazy warm-ups, and then it's back into cold fronts. We're kind of experiencing a little bit of that, maybe on a micro scale on this trip. But when we started out yesterday morning, I had in my mind it was going to be 80 degrees, high sun, you know, but it was cold and rainy and kind of blustery conditions. And then as we got towards the afternoon, everything looked completely different. It was high sun, dead flat calm. We could see walleyes in the water. We could see fish in the water. You know, the conditions changed dramatically. Let's talk about today, you know, what we're going to do, how we're going to explore, maybe how you guys go about exploring lakes in your region or your experiences with this spring so far. I know for me, you know, listeners know I've been all over the place. I've been on Leech, I've been on Mille Lacs, I've been on Brainerd, I've been now in Grand Rapids, Winnie. I've kind of been all over the map, and fishing's been pretty good in general. But the conditions have been really up and down. I've fished a lot of days where the wind has been cranking, and so that really limits me to certain shorelines or how I'm going to fish. I know when I'm guiding, I have customers in the boat, so there's sort of that limit to where they can cast and how they can cast. I also want to tie in technology because for me, breaking down bodies of water, even bodies of water that I fish all the time, but when you have changing conditions, it's so much nicer now with forward-facing sonar. I can get into areas and just start scanning. I've been fishing really, really shallow this season, probably more shallow than I ever have. And off air on this podcast, we had talked about water clarity, vegetation growth, some of these lakes that are full of algae. But it has been surprising that some of these lakes are really full of vegetation because it never died off. So what can you guys add to that? And I'm just jacked to get out today, and I've had a pot of coffee. So,
yeah, I'm excited to fish a lake that's going to have a little more rock to it and less of, you know, kind of a weed-controlled environment like we fished yesterday. And when we're talking smallmouth, you know, I like fishing them on boulders, on the rocks, even gravel and sand, because so many of my other bites are weed-related. All the pan fishing stuff I do down south, weed-related. Walleyes in the weeds, right? Largemouth bass in the weeds. When I fish smallies, I just think of this like beautiful rock spine with, you know, boulders kind of at the base, trailing off to maybe some cobble-sized stuff. And I'm going to be keeping an eye on both the shoreline and underwater for the size of rock that's going to have smallies. And I'm expecting we'll catch a few today, even if it's not lights out. Typically with smallmouth, I like to just get a couple as indicator fish, and then note exactly where they were and maybe try to figure out why. And I've noticed from Canada to Wisconsin, where I've fished a lot of smallmouth, especially in Minnesota, a lot of times they're keying in on certain size rock. It can be pea gravel. It could be even sand to rock transitions. And once I feel like I've got kind of an idea of what's going on there, boom, now I've got a cheat code to go apply that to the rest of the lakes. And I know, Tony J, maybe you don't have as much rock down in Nebraska for smallmouth or smallmouth in general, but I'm interested in what you're looking for today too.
Yeah, we actually do have quite a bit of rock, but our lakes are not nearly as clear. So I think one thing I learned that's important up here when you're dealing with ultra clear water is boat positioning when you're approaching that, that stubble. You can't get right on top of these fish here. You will spook them fast. And that's where the technology comes in with that forward-facing sonar. You know there's a long point here that has some boulder on it. You need to keep that boat 70, 80, 90 feet away and slowly ease up there. Let off the trolling motor when you go, get it down to 1 or 2 speed and just slowly be patient and come up there. Start scanning with that forward-facing, and that's where it comes in. You're not fishing dead water anymore. We used to just say, the point's a high percentage area. Let's go throw some jerk baits on top of it. Well, now you can get out there and scan. Like, there's no fish here. You're not wasting time anymore. It's harder than ever to get out on the water these days just because everybody's life's so busy. So just being able to have that technology and make sure you're capitalizing and maximizing your fishing time, I think is important. And it is a tool. It's a controversial tool, but it's a very, very helpful tool as well.
Well, for me, because I'm bouncing around from lake to lake and species to species, for example, this week, I'm fishing pretty much walleyes other than today, we're smallmouth bass fishing, but then I'm right back walleye fishing. But guess what? Next week, I'm going to be back bass fishing. Well, the week before, I smallmouth fished all week. So you start to get locked into fishing those memories that you were last week. But now as we get past the spawn, we get into more post-spawn fish, things change radically. And where these smallmouth bass are positioned is going to be totally different next week when I smallmouth fish versus a week ago. And so forward-facing sonar really helps me sort of narrow that down. But smallmouth bass are a lot like walleyes in the sense, like, if you find walleyes, let's say on a weed line like we were yesterday, you can go to like weed lines and catch them, right? Smallmouth bass too. If you're finding them in 6-foot chunk rock along all these areas, you're going to find more bass in 6 foot. Later in the season, when fish start to slide out to the edges or deeper boulders or they're using transition, it changes, but you can pattern them very, very easily. But getting locked into, I caught 50 smallmouth up on this one ridge or on these transition lines, your mind tells you need to go right back there, even though it's 2 weeks later. Whereas now when I get back to Mille Lacs Lake next week, you're going to have almost every fish post-spawn. You're going to have bug hatches going on. You're going to have fish that aren't even relating to the reefs that are eating bugs. You're hunting down wolf packs. You're using jerk baits, topwaters. So things will be changed radically from there was 2 weeks ago. And so having that forward-facing sonar technology just cuts down that learning curve. Like Tony said, time is value. When you get on the water, you want to maximize your efforts by hitting as many fish as you can or just getting on a pattern. Like for me, even yesterday, we obviously hit on a pattern that was working and we had to throw out a lot of fish to catch them. But until you get that pattern dialed in, you sort of seem sort of out of place, if you will. Like for me, I like to get on a solid pattern, whether it's for largemouth, walleyes, smallmouth bass. If I can get on that pattern where it's a Ned rig bite, or it's a hair jig bite, or it's a swim bait bite, or a jerk bait bite, or a topwater bite, whatever it is, I like to get that dialed in as quickly as possible. Well, with forward-facing sonar, you can do that because right away if they're hitting it or not. I mean, you watch them.
So I'm excited to see how you guys, you're bigger bass fishermen than I am. I've used live a ton for all kinds of things, ice, open water, especially walleyes, but also panfish. But smallmouth and largemouth, I've not used it as much. Will you guys stay on your live sonar for most of the day? Or will you kind of pull that thing back for certain presentations like topwater or jerk baits and just start chucking and winging it at shorelines? I'm kind of interested in how you're going to attack it.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on how I'm feeling. If we're catching them like crazy in 15 feet of water on rock, then live's going to be a big player. Same thing like we were doing for the walleye yesterday. It's just finding fish. But again, like the topwater, it actually is a really good tool for topwater. You can see schools of fish following your bait with the splash on top. But sometimes it's fun just to not look down at your screen and throw topwater and wait for that bite. So depends how much fish we're catching, in my opinion. If we're catching a bunch of them, then we probably don't need to rely on it as much and just go fishing. If it's a grind, kind of like it was yesterday, and we're trying to maximize that time again, then yeah, we're going to rely on it heavily. And Tony, you mentioned having a bunch of different baits tied on. Well, I think that's just the time of year we're in. It's June. It's a transition month. Everything's changing. You have late summer techniques that are in play, but you also have, pre-spawn, spawning fish that are in play. So you need to be prepared for everything in June. The vegetation's blooming. There's stuff growing. Things are changing. The lakes are turning. I mean, it's the best fishing of the year, but it's also the most difficult to pattern, in my opinion, because the fish could be doing such a wide variety of things. So,
yeah, for me with forward-facing sonar, Joel, I use it every day. I've got multiple units on my boat rigged. But like Tony said, there's times where, first of all, that some of these bass have been shined on. I call it shining on it, but they've been, hit so many times with that sonar signal, they don't like it. And so I'm basically using mine to find how many fish are in that area, how many fish are along this stretch, whether it's a break line, a rock pile, mid-lake hump. I'm just seeing what they're relating to, what depth they're at, and then how many fish are in that area. Because, so many times you'll pull up to a shoreline stretch and you got really great rock, good sand transitions where they're still relating to it post-spawn, or maybe even you have some fish on beds, but they're willing to pop out of that bed and hit a bait if it comes across them. I'm not hitting them and holding that on them all the time. I'm just looking for fish in that area. Unlike yesterday where we had to hold that on those walleyes and really pinpoint those fish to see their moods. But even with the walleyes, like I'll hit them and sometimes take it off just a little bit to see if it'll preempt that strike, because, like a lot of technology that comes out when you first, I always call it like the honeymoon stage, like a couple of years ago when forward facing first came out, you could literally hold it on that fish, watch that fish, swim a minnow, whatever you're doing for a presentation. They didn't care. They didn't know. Fish are adapting to that. They can feel that signal. And right away, like I'll hit fish sometimes like a smallmouth or a walleye. I hit them, and if they skirt out of that signal, then to keep that thing off of them. A lot of times, because I have one on my trolling motor, one on a pole, that one that's on a pole, sometimes I'll just shut that one off and be like, hey, I'm just going to use this one, you guys, but I'm going to show you where to cast when I'm guiding, like, hey, they're all up along that chunk rock. Cast to the edge of the bulrushes, cast to the end of that island. I can spot lock. Like Tony said, keeping your boat away from these fish is going to be a challenge today just because we're fishing such clear water. We've got high sun. And so being able to spot lock or power pole down and pitch at a certain spot and just let the fish calm down for a minute. I always tell people, like, if you bump into a pile of fish and you spook them, just mark it and you can come back to that spot. That you can always revisit that. They're going to bite again. I mean, even yesterday, we kind of revisited a few walleye spots because we saw some big ones with our own eyes. And then we had some that were really interested in chasing, but whether it was due to the wind blowing us too close or we didn't notice them right away. When you get into different types of bottom contour substrate, you have to fish differently. Like in the morning when we were up on big sand flats and stuff, I could really power through and then be like, oh, there they are, and try to stop the boat at like 60 or 80 feet. Whereas when we got in the weeds, I really had to slow down a little bit. And that's pretty typical of vegetation fishing, especially with forward-facing sonar when you're dealing with like big, thick cabbage or milfoil. You gotta, the denser the vegetation, the more you have to slow down and sort of pick it apart. And it's hard to do for me because I love power fishing. Like prior to forward-facing sonar, you ask anybody that fished with me, I will power fish. That's why I will throw a jerk bait. I will throw a chatterbait. I'll throw a spinner bait. For walleye fishing, I'll cast. I'll throw a plastic, a paddle tail, a fork tail, a jerk bait. Like I've always kind of power fished. And it's just because I could cover ground quicker. I have to tell myself to slow down sometimes because I get so excited and so jacked up. And I think, oh, if there's fish down this break, they're going to be all the way down this thing, And so when we're exploring new lakes like we're going to do today, there's times where I just have to tell myself, okay, chill out a little bit and just sort of pick apart these areas. The same can be said about big boulders because I'm used to fishing Mille Lacs, Leech, where you have these giant boulders. And there's times where those bass are set up on those backside of those boulders. And with lakes that are that clear like that, all of a sudden you'll wrap around the boulder and you get too close and you're like, I just bumped them. Tony and I found a tree yesterday, right? That one log, and there was fish sitting all on it. To be honest with you, I think they were crappies, but we got a little too close. And of course I got hooked up on the wood and then boom, they spooked out of there. That would be a perfect example of coming back, spot locking away, keeping yourself at 40, 50, 60 feet, wherever you're comfortable casting, and then revisiting those areas. And that's all part of that whole experience of exploring.
Yeah, as this game evolves, it's definitely changing the way we fish, but also it's like you said, changing the fish themselves and how they react a little bit. We saw yesterday, and I've been seeing this a fair amount in the lakes I fish, the walleyes, like you said, they can have a negative reaction or they can have kind of a mediocre reaction. They might trail your bait a little bit, and then you lose them for some reason. I think it's them swimming outside of the cone of that transducer. They're still kind of tracking because we had a surprising number of bites that were literally boat side. Those fish were still tracking our baits all the way to the boat. They were just maybe trying to stay out of the beam of that forward-facing sonar cone. And literally, when the jig was coming off bottom to get back to the boat, they lurch up, including our biggest fish, a 28, hit it boat side. I mean, and just crushed it. So yeah, it's changing how we're going at this, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. And it's funny you guys mentioned, the fish getting pressured enough that they're starting to, feel that ping. I'm a tournament bass angler back home. And the way I use it when I'm fishing ultra clear water, like we did yesterday, a lot of times is I'm trying to catch as many bass I can that day. So I'll pick out a fish, 15 feet of water. And if it's clear enough, I'll just make sure that if I'm swimming a minnow over them, that it's going to come over them. And then I'll start looking for other fish because I know my bait's going to come by that fish. I'm either going to catch it or not. I'll check in on him once in a while, see if he's still following. But it is fun to watch, a fish come up and get your bait on the sonar. But it's also a tool that I like to use to find other fish. So if it's clear enough, if I'm within 4 or 5 feet of that fish, he's going to see it. So if I can make sure that my jig's going to come near him, I'm already scanning, looking for other fish. And if I catch him, great. If not, then I probably wasn't going to anyway in that clear water. So I'm always scanning, looking for other fish. Again, that plays in with water clarity and just how pressured the fish are. But
Lake Minnetonka is a prime example of fish getting pinged all the time. I went down there last year for a Rapid Marine. It was like a Pro-Am tournament, And I don't know Lake Minnetonka like all these other guys, Matt Johnson and all these guys, Travis Frank that fishes it. So I basically have to use my forward-facing sonar to scan all these deep break lines. I'm focusing in on the breaks, on deep weed humps, because I don't know all the docks. I don't know all the backwaters to throw top waters like these guys. And so what I'd do is I'd scan down those breaks and I'd find the weed pockets. But my main thing is I'd throw a freeloader, like a Crush City freeloader or a mooch minnow over the top of that vegetation, and I would work it back. As soon as those fish would come out of that vegetation or where the pockets were, I'd have my co-angler throw a Ned rig in there, and I would draw the fish out a lot of times with that freeloader. They'd come and look at it, and if they didn't strike the freeloader, they would hit the Ned rig. But it was amazing. As soon as they'd hit that signal, boom, they'd pop right back down in the vegetation. I mean, they have been caught a lot, and so that's a prime example. I'm seeing it on Leech. I'm seeing it all over the place. Forward-facing sonar isn't the end all. They said when underwater cameras came out, fish are doomed. When they said when mapping technology, fish are doomed. We've talked a lot about it extensively on this podcast. However, it's not an end all. It is a tool that you need to know. And the more that you use that tool, you realize the power of that tool. And I think as anglers, and like we're doing today, just going out, having fun, releasing fish, being respectful of the resource, that's going to have to be part of every angler out there that's using this technology. But also, anglers are going to find out pretty quickly that, you can't just shine at fish and catch them and make them jump in the boat. So, you guys, I have taken up a lot of your time already. I know we're all chomping at the bit to go
fish,
fishing.
Tony. Holy cow, man.
We've all been pounding coffee. We're jacked up about fishing. I'm super pumped to go experience a lake I haven't fished in 20 years. So I'm going to call it a new lake, air quotes, break it down with everything we have with the app, with forward-facing sonar, put our brains together. We're going to have a couple different boats out there. I'm really excited to get out there, get after it with you guys, This is a cool experience, you guys. If you guys want to experience fishing new lakes on your own, I highly recommend getting the onX Fish app and just start exploring. It's really fun. Even just sitting in bed at night, looking over lakes, or if you're going on vacation, everyone geeks out about the experience that they're going to do. It's going to put you in a better place. You're going to become a better angler as a result of this app. Joel, why don't you let the listeners know once again how they can get the app, where it's available, some of the things about the app, and then we got to get to fishing, guys.
100%. Yeah, onX Fish is available now in 4 states: Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and recently North Dakota. We're going to have a couple other states coming on board. It's really easy. If you're an Apple iPhone user, you can download it from the App Store. It's $34.99 a year. If you're an Android user like me, I'm an Android user. We're working on it for the Android folks. Stay tuned. Keep patient with us. We're going to make it a great experience for you. But you can still use it on the web version, web mobile on your phone, on a tablet, on a desktop, a laptop. So, all hope is not lost if you're an Android person like myself. You can certainly make use of it in a great way as well. So, again, $34.99, that is for an entire year. It's going to cover you through ice season, open water, and you're going to be able to have it for multiple states, including the new states that we expand into. So excited to see people using it. I'm really happy, Tony, that you are. Excited, Tony J, to introduce it to you. So, yeah, looking forward to getting out here today.
Yeah, absolutely. And for $34.99, if people are hesitant about that, I'll say that's like 3 packs of soft plastics and a jig these days.
Nothing.
So, and it's that's one day of fishing for those baits. This is going to get you through a whole season, and it's going to open up opportunities for you like crazy. So I would consider that a steal of a price after seeing what the app is.
I just put $150 in my boat. And, you guys fish with me. I go wide open all the time. $34.99. It's a great value. Thank you guys so much for jumping on the podcast. I can't wait to get out fishing with you. Tune in next week. I'll kind of do a follow-up with this. I've got some other ideas for the podcast next week, but I will follow up with the listeners how today goes. I can say already it's been a fantastic experience. I want to do this again next year. Expand on it, maybe try other regions, even other states, because that's what I do as an angler. I love exploring, and the app has made me a better angler for sure. So tune in next week. Good luck fishing, everybody. This has been the Dialed In Angling Podcast.